A hearty welcome to those who believe in the power of their dreams and who would like to join me in my exploration as a researcher and teacher. Today we are going to discuss about the role of listening skill in effective communication. Listening skill is the most neglected skill in language learning and language teaching. It is an important skill which must be learned and taught carefully. Most learners need an intensive practice in listening skill. Listening skill is a receptive skill as the listener receives information. He is a decoder who decodes the message encoded by the speaker. Listening means decoding the spoken text and understanding the meaning conveyed by it. Thus, listening plays a major role in the process of communication. Adults spend 50% of communication time listening, 25 to 30% speaking, 11% reading, and about 9% writing. Listening is a process which involves five related activities, namely sensing, interpreting, evaluating, remembering, and responding. Sensing. It means physically hearing the message and taking note of it. Reception can be blocked by interfering noises, impaired hearing, or inattention. One can tune out distractions and focus on registering the message. Interpreting. It means decoding and absorbing what one hears. The speaker's frame of reference may be quite different, so one must try to determine what the speaker really means. Paying attention to non-verbal cues often increases the accuracy of one's perception. Evaluating. Evaluating means forming an opinion about the message. Sorting through the speaker's remarks requires a good deal of effort. It is also tempting to dismiss ideas offered by people who are unattractive or abrasive and to embrace ideas offered by charismatic speakers. Remembering. It means storing a message for future reference. To retain what one hears, one must take notes or make mental outline of the speaker's key points. The last one, responding. Responding means acknowledging the message by reacting to the speaker in some fashion. Thus, listening requires some physical as well as mental activities. Fred Carville gives four levels of listening. The first level of listening is to make sense out of sound. At this level, the listener distinguishes the sender's words. The listener often does it when he tries to concentrate at his work when the television is playing. The level of listening is closer to awareness than understanding. The understanding begins at the second level of listening. The listener concentrates on the spoken text and tries to understand it. He may face semantic difficulties in understanding the meaning of the spoken text. The third level distinguishes fact from fancy. The listener's intelligence, knowledge of the language helps him to evaluate the spoken text. The fourth level of listening requires a lot of concentration on the part of the listener. He understands the point of view of the speaker. Now, there are two types of listening skill: intensive listening and extensive listening. Intensive listening aims at detailed comprehension of meaning. In this type of listening, the listener tries to derive facts, infer things, and summarize the spoken text. In intensive listening, the spoken text is not very lengthy. In intensive listening, the speaker looks for specific information. In extensive listening, the listener listens to a longer spoken discourse and tries to understand the general meaning of it. Now, listening is always purposive. There are some purposes for which people listen to get general information or the main points of the speech, specific information. The listeners look for particular items, cultural interest, some general things, people's attitudes and opinions, organization of ideas, sequence of events, lexical items, words expressing noise, movements, structural items, their use and meaning, and functional items, their form and use. Now, there are a lot many listening activities in which learners of a language get involved into. These activities are presented by A.K. Paliwal. They are conversations, telephone, instructions, broadcasts, news, songs, directions, lectures, interviews, stories, advertisements, talks, dialogues, discussions. In case of foreign language or second language like English, the learners need intensive practice in listening skill. They have to achieve familiarity with the sounds of English language. The speech is always entailed with noise. Some words may be drowned by outside interference. The foreign language learner or the second language learner has to cope up with this noise and predict the meaning of the utterance. He has to learn to ignore or to skim unimportant items. Much of what we listen to is redundant, so there is a need to recognize this intensity and redundancy. There are several factors that contribute to poor listening. The listener's weak proficiency in the target language results in poor listening. His narrow range of vocabulary causes poor listening. In noisy places, there is a possibility of mishearing words or not hearing them at all, which ultimately leads to poor listening. Some listeners do not take listening seriously. They get distracted very easily. It gives rise to poor listening. The listener's lack of interest in the speaker or his message results in poor listening. The listener's dislike of the speaker distorts his listening. If the listener is over enthusiastic about the speaker, he tends to listen to him uncritically. If the listener is overconfident, he does not pay attention to the speaker. He assumes that he knows what the speaker is going to say. He responds on the basis of his assumption, which always proves to be wrong. Sometimes, because of the listener's lack of confidence, his listening suffers. The listener's beliefs, his prejudices, convictions lead to poor listening. Now, if one really wants to master a language, he or she has to master listening skill. One can become an efficient listener by consciously cultivating the habit of listening. An efficient listener is one who possesses certain qualities. Qualities of an efficient listener are: a good listener is one who maintains eye contact with the speaker. He reflects appropriate feelings in facial expressions. His posture, body language, and eye contact indicate interest in the spoken message. Neither does he talk while listening nor interrupts the speaker. He is not at all impatient. He allows the speaker to set forth his views clearly. He shows his desire to listen. He avoids distraction of mind. He is attentive and concentrates on the speech. He expresses his opinions after the speaker finishes his speech. He is not a partial or selective listener. He has no personal prejudice against the speaker. He establishes harmony with the speaker. He asks appropriate questions to the speaker in order to show his interest in the speech. He does not get excited by the speech. He concentrates on the speech in spite of the noise at the time of the speech. He avoids expressing his own views as it may cause argumentation with the speaker. He has high proficiency in the target language. His wide range of vocabulary contributes to the listening. In the process of communication, thus, listening plays a crucial role. Though it is called a passive and receptive skill, the listener has to actively process the spoken message and understand the meaning. Listening skill is the most neglected skill in language learning. More emphasis should be given on developing the listening skill. Listeners should consciously cultivate positive habits to improve listening. The most useful asset of a person is not a head full of knowledge, but a heart full of love, with ears open to listen and hands willing to help. In the words of Paulo Coelho, listen to your heart. It knows all things. Thank you very much. Let's keep collaborating. Thank you.